NBC News, New York.
And David Brinkley, NBC News, Washington.
The Senate voted today for a 15% increase in Social Security benefits with a $100 per month minimum. The present minimum is $55. The Senate measure, furthermore, calls for no increase in Social Security taxes. Earlier, the Senate rejected the administration's recommendation calling for a 10% increase in Social Security benefits. David?
The Army is trying to find out why nothing was heard about the killings at Mile High until now. It has a panel investigating this, and today it hired 2 civilian lawyers to work with the panel to bring in, they said, some outside objectivity. And the only soldier accused so far in the killings, Lieutenant William Calley, was called into the Pentagon for questioning. He was flown in from Fort Benning, Georgia, where he will be court-martialed later.
Lieutenant Kelly arrived at the Pentagon early this afternoon. He refused to talk to newsmen and was rushed into the building. Unlike Captain Medina, who was Kelly's commanding officer in Vietnam and who talked to newsmen yesterday, the lieutenant has been formally charged with murder. Since the Army is prosecuting Kelly, his civilian attorney instructed him not to answer the questions of the investigating panel. No one is saying whether Kelly did or did not talk, since even that information could be incriminating. While Kelly was still in the building, Deputy Defense Secretary David Packard was holding a news conference. He was asked about the conduct of American servicemen in Vietnam.
It's interesting to note that a recent public opinion poll among the South Vietnamese in the 3 and 4 Corps areas showed that only 2.8% of the people disapproved of the behavior of American troops in their country. So while I'm sure there are incidents and probably will be incidents in the future that we are very unhappy about, the general impression that you get is that the attitude of the people there is toward the Americans is really quite good. And I think all of us, including the press, have an obligation to distinguish between an allegation and a proof, and to be mindful of a principle that the individual is presumed innocent until he's proved guilty. So we're, just as I say, terribly sick about this thing. We're going to do the best we can to bring it to justice, and in the way that I'm sure that all of you and the American people would want us to do.
Senator Kennedy of Massachusetts said the other day his subcommittee had figures showing 300,000 South Vietnamese civilians had been killed in the war. Most of them, he said, during the military operations of the Americans and the South Vietnamese Army. American sources in Saigon said they didn't know exactly where he got those figures, but whatever the facts, South Vietnam's civilians have lived with death for years.
With a company of Vietnamese troopers guarding the way, 9 Vietnamese legislators investigating the village incident rode on tanks into the area where the village used to be. 4 survivors of the 1968 incident accompanied the group to point the way. The guides identified the former area of their hamlet. It's overgrown with weeds and is, to this day, Viet Cong territory. The survivors pointed out a field and a ditch where they said many of their relatives and neighbors died. This woman said her husband, her niece, and her cousin were all killed that day. None of these survivors was an eyewitness to the alleged shooting. They recalled that they saw American soldiers entering their hamlet and saw the residents gathering together. These survivors ran and hid. They said from their hiding places they heard shooting. They said they emerged from hiding to find many bodies, including many women and children. They couldn't remember how many, just many. Only a few of the bodies were buried at the scene. Most were moved to scattered locations by the different families. For this reason, because of the time lag and the strength of the enemy in the area, there seems to be no thought of exhuming any bodies. The Legislative Committee, conducting its probe against the wishes of President Chu, will report its findings to the Vietnamese General Assembly.
Since all this became public, a number of people in letters to Congress and otherwise have raised questions about the Nuremberg trials and the precedent set there. The decision there in trying the German leaders after World War II, the decision was that a soldier committing an atrocity could not excuse himself simply by saying he was following an order. The U.S. Army's position now is that a soldier must obey a lawful order. But a soldier obeying an order a person of ordinary sense and understanding would know to be illegal cannot be excused. That is a somewhat murky and difficult area, and the Army knows it. And if that question arises now, probably each case will have to be decided on its merits in court, one way or another.
The Huntley Brinkley Report is produced by NBC News and brought to you in color by McDonald's Restaurants. McDonald's is your kind of place.
Now I'll tell you about a legend, and they call him Big Mac. He was born full-grown, double delicious, triple-decker, and 100% beef. But he was only disguised as a sandwich, that's a fact. He's really a man-sized meal, 'cause it was Big Mac, Big Mac. So head out to McDonald's and put your arms around that monumental, delicious Big Mac.
Over its clandestine radio station, the Viet Cong announced that it will observe a 3-day ceasefire for both Christmas and New Year. Earlier, the Allies had declared a 24-hour ceasefire for the two holidays. This Christmas truce will be the 13th so declared since 1961, all of them violated hundreds of times by the other side. For the second straight day, American aircraft struck hard at enemy gun emplacements in Cambodia. 5 Americans were killed in scattered ground action. In Washington, Deputy Defense Secretary Packard said that enemy infiltration from North Vietnam is increasing, but American withdrawal is going to continue.
It's very difficult to assess what the intent of the enemy is, but it's my view that the increase in infiltration indicates that the enemy intends at the very least to continue some level of activity there. Whether this level is going to escalate into something like Tet, or whether it's simply to support the present small unit guerrilla harassment type actions, we just don't know.
The figure of 150,000 has been used sometimes. Might that be an accurate figure of the residual force?
Well, here again, I don't think we can talk about any figure. We've got to talk about numbers and when. If this Vietnamization program goes, as I think it can, we certainly should be able to come down below that level in some reasonable time.
It was a year ago last May that the Paris peace talks opened, and they have been a frugal source of news or progress ever since. After an investment of 45 weeks, Ambassador Henry Cabot Lodge, Jr. is giving it up as a poor show.
For 45 weeks, Henry Cabot Lodge arrived at the conference center to try and negotiate peace in Vietnam. In 45 weeks, he repeatedly called for mutual troop withdrawals, for supervised elections, and information on American prisoners in North Vietnam. Every time, he returned to the American embassy with the same news: no progress. Lodge's importance at the Paris talks was not just as a negotiator, but also as a well-known person, a symbol of the importance and hope the Nixon administration put in the peace talks.
Mr. Ambassador, you once said that you thought this war would gradually fade away. Do you still think so?
Well, of course, we would like to have a negotiated settlement in the classical way, but if that is not obtainable and you can get de facto arrangement where people don't kill each other anymore, that's really the important thing, isn't it?
Which is more likely to happen in your view?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not good at predicting things.
President Nixon must now decide whether to replace Ambassador Lodge with another prestigious figure. If he does, it will reaffirm American interest in the peace talks. If he does not, it will be a signal to the communists and the American people that Mr. Nixon does not expect to find peace here at the negotiating table, but through his policy of Vietnamization. Garrick Utley, NBC News, Paris.
There were signs today in Europe that East and West are moving to reduce tensions. In Brussels, the NATO allies told the Soviet Union they're ready for talks, but they did warn that long preparations would have to precede the kind of security conference the Russians have in mind. And in Moscow, Western diplomatic sources said the Warsaw Treaty countries no longer are insisting on recognition of East Germany before they'll talk about improving relations with the West.
I want my old machine back, Mr. Purdy.
But-
This new big washer does bigger loads, but no better.
Well, your wash load is now 50% bigger. More clothes, more dirt. For big machines, you need Dash detergent concentrate. Dash puts more detergent in its detergent. It's nearly twice as heavy. Let's try it with Dash.
Now that's what I call clean.
Get Dash. Dash gets the best from the big machine.
Venus is the brightest of all the planets, and it is also... David, what?
I only have one cavity.
Oh, fine. But excellent checkup. Want to tell him how?
We switched to Crest.
Are you sure it was the Crest? Now I am. That fluoride stuff works. The others we tried didn't have it. In my opinion, Crest is the cavity expert. Smile, please.
Fighting cavities is the whole idea behind Crest.
The unemployment figure for November had the biggest drop in 10 years, but the news was not as good as it looked. Unemployment declined, but for an unusual reason. In the government's figures, a person is counted unemployed if he does not have a job and says he is looking for one. But in November, because of tight money, high interest, and other factors, the economy slowed down considerably. And so a lot of marginal workers, teenagers, part-time employees, housewives, simply gave up looking for jobs and withdrew from the labor market. So, for that reason, the figure shows unemployment dropping from 3.9 to 3.4% of the labor force.
Beaufort County, South Carolina, hasn't been a symbol of unemployment so much as hunger. Until recently, an unknown hunger in a county filled with antebellum mansions, plantations, resorts, and resident millionaires. Then came reports of malnutrition, hunger, and children with worms. Now everybody knows about it. It began 2 years ago when a doctor moved here from Nebraska and began publicizing these conditions. Then Senator Ernest Hollings and some others toured homes, and suddenly Beaufort County was a national symbol for hunger. At first, the response was defensive. Then the county began distributing federal food stamps. Usually that is done by having recipients come to the county seat and buying the stamps at a discount. Now the county has set up regional offices, and people who cannot get stamps there can get them in the mail. Very often they are free. But the problem was more than getting enough food. It was the kind of food and knowing what to do with it. The county now sends nutrition aides to homes. Usually these are local people trained by Clemson University to give dietary advice. They instruct whoever does the family cooking. In this home, it was a 13-year-old boy.
That beans, have you yet learned about that beans? Do you need a plenty of meat when you serve beans?
Yeah.
Do you need a plenty of meat?
No, you don't need
No, why? Because what? What about the beans? What do you get from the beans? Or what? Forgot already?
In certain cases, the poor do have to come to town. The health department in Beaufort County was once very, very skeptical about all the reports of hunger. Now there's a special program for prescription foods, special food for expectant mothers and babies. The doctor who started the hunger crusade believes the attitude of the entire county has changed.
I just have seen nothing that would lead me to believe that they weren't serious. Now in our area, it's very difficult to find a roundworm, where before it was very difficult to check a child and not find one.
3.
After the hunger programs came in, other poverty programs were quick to follow. Vista workers are in Beaufort County now, and the poor are finally getting some attention paid to them.
3, 4, 5. That's very good.
I think that the bringing to light of the conditions, the bad publicity, if you want to call it that we wanted to overcome it. We didn't want to live with it. Basically, this is what motivated us to do something about it. I think that a lot of it is done from compassion on some of our parts. I don't say that everybody changes. You can't do that. You know it and I know it, but I think our biggest step was when we admitted that there was a problem, and then we started to work on the problem.
In the so-called tax reform bill, the House voted to strip every foundation of its tax exemption after 40 years because, it was said, many of them were simply tax-dodging devices. Today, the Senate knocked that out of the bill. Senator Pastore said some probably were tax dodges, but he said this law would burn down the barn to kill one mouse. Chet?
Chief Justice Warren Burger said today he has named 10 United States judges to advise all federal judges on just what they should or should not do outside their court duties. 3 of the 10 will review reports of any payments over $100 received by federal judges for outside activities. The Justice Department revealed today at a congressional hearing that the post office is intercepting mail to foreign bank accounts and sending the contents to the Justice Department. That way, it's hoped the government can cut down on illegal operations in Switzerland and other foreign countries.
I'm nearly 20 years older than some of these kids in this little theater group. Oh, I have my little aches and pains. Doc says it's arthritis. And I always have Anacin. Anacin's my friend. Relieves my pain so I don't feel so stiff for hours. Where did I hear Anacin tablets have more of the pain medicine doctors prescribe most for arthritis?
Watch TV, you learn something.
For arthritis, minor pain, and stiffness, Anacin gives you more freedom of movement without pain.
This man has a bad cold, congestion deep in sinuses. Breathing's blocked. Use Dristan Nasal Mist for deep, direct sinus relief without pills. First, Dristan Mist helps clear nasal passages. But Dristan does more. Dristan breaks through, helps drain cold congestion deep in sinuses. Now breathing is easier. For deep, direct sinus relief without pills, Dristan Nasal Mist.
The Huntley-Brinkley Report continues, brought to you by Pan Am. First to fly the 747, the plane with all the room in the world.
Chances are you've heard about the plane they call the 747. And chances are you've wondered, who's going to get this incredible bird off the ground? Now you know. Pan Am will bring you the world's first 747. Pan Am will bring you the plane with all the room in the world.
The defense in the riot conspiracy trial in Chicago tried to get J. Edgar Hoover on the stand with a lot of FBI records. Today, Judge Hoffman said no, they couldn't do that it had nothing to do with the trial. The prosecution has just about ended its case, which so far has taken 50 days. Today, a day after Chicago police shot it out with the Black Panthers, killing 2 of them, they raided the apartment of another Panther leader, Bobby Rush. They found an unregistered gun and some ammunition, but Rush was not there.
Today's raid was on an apartment in this building occupied by Bobby Rush, where police expected to find a large supply of guns. After the raid, NBC News reporter David Klein talked with one of the undercover policemen.
At 5:30 this morning, we knocked on the door. Receiving no answer, we forced our way in.
What did the place look like when you got inside?
It was a shambles. It was like people moving out in a hurry.
What did you find there?
We found a small quantity of shotgun, rifle, and pistol ammunition, a small foreign-make Derringer, a small quantity of marijuana, training manuals, Army training manuals on booby traps, explosives and demolitions, and shotguns, and quite a bit of reading material on revolutionary reading material, such as Che Guevara, Mao Tse-tung, and this sort of thing.
In downtown Chicago, there was a silent demonstration by anti-war groups protesting yesterday's slaying of Panther chairman Fred Hampton. 2 clergymen in the group said the shooting of 26 Panthers in the past year may represent a national campaign by police to wipe out the Panthers. A bystander took issue with the charge.
You, Father, well, how come you didn't pray when them 2 policemen were shot on the south side? I don't see you parading around here when they were shot. You was out there preaching about Vietnam, but you didn't go and start a group and parade when them 2 policemen were shot out there and ambushed.
Well, I think there's a direct connection between what's happening in Chicago and what's happening in Vietnam. The kind of violence...
I know, but you're parading now.
We are getting used to
police
here.
murder, but you wasn't here when they murdered the 2 policemen parading around here.
Today, at a Southside Catholic church, a mass was spoken for Hampton. In other sections of the city, community groups started calling for a moratorium on the violence, which so far this year has seen 8 policemen slain, several others wounded, and more than a score of blacks either slain or wounded in ghetto confrontations. Bill Matney, NBC News, Chicago.
In Kansas City, Missouri, too, there's been trouble between the police and the Black Panthers. It flared up again today at what was supposed to have been a routine police news conference.
A brief but fierce scuffle occurred between Panthers and police this afternoon outside the office of Police Chief Clarence Kelly. He was to answer charges by the Panthers that he had defrauded an insurance company and sold guns to the Minutemen. Local Panther leader Pete O'Neill presented evidence earlier in the day to a grand jury. Then he and 3 associates tried to attend Chief Kelly's news conference, but police stopped them. One of the police officers suffered minor cuts. The Panthers refused medical care and are being held under $100 bond each. O'Neill's charges against Chief Kelly were denied by the insurance company and by Kelly. Don Perlman reporting from Kansas City.
Several members of a spooky crowd of cultists or something are being charged in the murder of actress Sharon Tate and several others. Today, the lawyer for one of them said his client, a young girl, would tell the whole story to the grand jury. Who was there, who murdered whom, and all of it.
The grand jury was asked for murder indictments against 7 people in the Sharon Tate killings. Most of the district attorney's case is based on the testimony of this girl, Susan Atkins, who has admitted being at the Tate house the night of the murders and at the scene of 2 other murders in Los Angeles. Prosecutors would not discuss testimony. They showed pictures of the rope found looped over a beam and tied to the necks of Miss Tate and Jay Sebring. This gun was allegedly used to kill another victim. In all, 22 witnesses were scheduled, among them Winifred Chapman, the maid who discovered the bodies. Miss Atkins testified about the influence of Charles Manson, the leader of the hippie clan to which she belonged. Her attorneys said she is upset and emotional, but told the grand jury everything.
She's waived her privilege against self-incrimination. In other words, she's telling everything that she knows about all of the killings. That's correct. Is she talking?
Miss Atkins is said to be afraid of Manson, who allegedly masterminded the killings. Members of the Klan said Manson had a hypnotic influence, particularly over girls. Defense attorney Richard Caballero said Miss Atkins had been put under Manson's spell.
If she goes to trial, will you use the hypnotic state as a defense?
Well, I'm going to show that she wasn't in her right state of mind, that she was, in fact, following this man, and as I indicated, whatever he said was right is what she would do, whatever he said was wrong, and I think that by this time, now that you've seen other reports from where Mr. Charlie Manson is, there's some indication that he is, in fact, a man that has this kind of Svengali power over people.
The attorney for Linda Kasabian, who has been charged in the murders, said she also was hypnotized.
Our feeling is that when you've been a member of a group that's been under some kind of a hypnotic spell, if they get together again, it might be restored, you know? It might be a turn-on, so to speak.
Would this have anything to do with diminished capacity as a plea?
Well, it might. I don't know. I can't tell you now, but it might amount to the defense of unconsciousness.
Metropolitan Life has an insurance checkup to end all checkups. We call it the Family Security Checkup. Metropolitan's Family Security Checkup. It's an agent and a computer working together to work out your family's financial future. With a program like this, we won't have to break down doors to see you.
Shlomo Samuelov and Salah Mualem, the two Israelis held by Syria after a TWA airplane was hijacked to Damascus in August, flew home today to Tel Aviv. Syria let them go in return for 13 Syrians held prisoner by Israel. Emil Zatopek, the former Olympic running champion, has been dismissed as a colonel in the Czechoslovak army. Previously, he had been dropped from official posts and membership in the Communist Party. He was too liberal to suit the Soviet Union. Tufts University went to court to find out why a construction company putting up one of its buildings didn't hire enough black workers. Today, the court said the company did not have to say why. Prices closed at a new low for the year today on the New York Stock Exchange. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 3.5 points, and the price of an average share went down 13 cents. Wall Street analysts said there were no indications the trend would be reversed. David?
A group called Tell It to Hanoi ran ads in the papers asking signatures of support for the president on the war, and it got 350,000 and delivered them to him today. On Saturday, the president goes to the Texas-Arkansas football game, and he'll give the winner a plaque proclaiming it the #1 team in the country. Governor Schaefer of Pennsylvania appealed to him not to do it because, he said, the #1 team was Penn State. Two congressmen, one whose name begins with W and one whose name begins with Z, complained that on roll calls, they always are at the bottom, and that the A's, B's, and C's always get to vote and get out 30 or 40 minutes sooner than they do. So they want the roll call to begin at the bottom. In Cincinnati, local black leaders met with the local department stores and insisted they hire some black Santa Clauses. That otherwise, they said, Santa Claus would remain a racist symbol. The stores said no, that Santa Claus would remain white. Good night, Chet.
Good night, David, and good night for NBC News.